Welcome to the Night's Open Circuit, the official IEEE UCF podcast. I'm your host, Antonia Jimenez.
And I'm Julia Lampert. In today's episode, we have Ledlyne Vazquez. She's a UCF alum with her bachelor's in electrical engineering and master and PhD in industrial engineering. She currently works at NASA as a program manager. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's truly a pleasure to be with both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ledlyne. So we will start with the questions. The first one is, why did you choose to go through a STEM major?
So this actually started in high school. My STEM journey started in high school. So I want to say it was really middle school. They had a club and it was called SECME. And with the SECME club, we got to do like mousetrap car competitions, brain bowl, and we got to do bridge building competitions. Well, I don't know, something about that balsa wood. I wanted to start building these little bridges. So I'd be home building my little triangle bridges and putting them together. And I actually fell in love with engineering in middle school. But once I got to high school, I continued on with SECME. And when I continued on with SECME in high school, it was a math teacher that noticed that you have high grades in math, you really should look into engineering. But the key thing is always, do we see people that look like us? Well, I actually had an uncle who was an engineer at IBM. And whenever we used to go to his house when we were younger, they used to help babysit us. And when we used to go to his house when we were younger, he was building his senior design project. He was a student at FAU. And his senior design project, he was building a computer. So that sparked a lot of interest between me and my sister, like, well, what are you doing? And of course, like little kids, we were in there trying to play with his little piece parts. He'd be like, get away, get away. But we were always trying to play with his stuff, or as far as playing with his computer components. And it just sparked the interest because we saw the love that he had for it. And then in high school, dealing with my math teacher, her name was Miss Pamela Vaughn. She encouraged me to do a summer program. So at Florida A&M, Florida State College of Engineering, they had a minority introduction to engineering. And at FAMU Florida State, it was a week class. So for 1 week in the summer, my parents actually let me travel to Tallahassee and take 1 week of engineering as far as and what we did was we did little experiments. They took us to the different labs, introduced us to the different concepts of engineering. And then that following summer, I applied to a summer engineering program at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. So I went up to Wisconsin for 6 weeks in the summer, and I was there. It was the ESP, which was the engineering summer program, and I did 6 weeks there. And with that program, they went further into depth with engineering. So they took us to different companies in the area that had different engineering companies. So we went to the Harley Davidson factory. We went to Johnson and Johnson. We went to it was GE Medical. So GE Medical builds all the medical equipment that we see in hospitals and stuff. And then they took us to Kimberly-Clark, where Kimberly-Clark makes paper products. They make diapers, bathroom tissue, hand towels, all of that. So between the Florida State and then the University of Wisconsin-Madison, between those two experiences, and then both of those experiences, the classrooms were all minority students. So I met students that had traveled to Wisconsin from Puerto Rico, from all over the US, and all of us were minority. So it made me realize I wasn't the only minority that was interested in engineering. I fell in love with seeing what the people were doing in the different companies, and I was sold. I was like, I want to be an engineer. So by the time I made it into UCF, I was sold. I was just like, I got to do whatever I need to do to get through this major. It may not be easy. His name was Dr. Riley. My mom always reminds me for UCF orientation, Dr. Riley said, look to your left, look to your right. And he's like, two of you aren't going to be at graduation. 1 in 3 of you is going to make it to graduation. And my mom was like, well, she going to make it. So I don't know about y'all too. And I was like, oh. And she was so encouraging. So all through my engineering journey, it was just always so important to also have the support of the family. Like they encourage you when you have that bad test, you have that bad moment in engineering, they encourage you to stick with it. And then societies. So I at UCF, I was a part of NESB. So just like I said, meeting more minorities that were going through the struggle of engineering, we all encouraged each other. And then the minority engineering office at UCF, it was a great place for a lot of us to meet and collaborate as far as like studying, going through our notes together so that we could make it through the major and eventually graduate. So I didn't complete in 4 years. I actually completed in 5, but it doesn't matter because you can finish. You can. So yeah, so that's how I chose going into engineering was just pretty much an interest. So that's why it's so important that, like that you introduce kids early to different things within engineering because you never know what's going to spark their interest and it's going to really make them want to stick with the major.
Yeah, that's kind of how I developed an interest in engineering. My dad's an electrical engineer, and him and I know, right? And him and I used to do projects together when I was growing up. So I learned how to solder when I was like 9. And so it just like
Nice.
sparked my own interest in it. So I totally get it.
Mm-hmm.
So you said that you went to a lot of different minority programs for like engineering. At UCF, did you ever feel discouraged as a minority while you were taking classes or like in study groups? Because I know, like, especially in electrical, it is mostly men. Like,
It is mostly men. And the girls, like the women in engineering, we used to band together. So we used to band together and we used to study together. We used to review our notes together. Like in my phone, there are 3 of us. There were only, well, in my class there were 3 of us, and we banded together. We worked together. As far as like we made sure that we took our electives together. We studied together. We understood each other's strengths and each other's weaknesses within engineering. So my first electrical certificates class, I won't call out the professor's name because I'm sure he wouldn't want me to, but my first electrical circuits class, it was introduction to electrical circuits. I'm in the class and I'm just like, "Ugh, I'm not feeling this. I'm not." I was just like, what is this? Because it's like you go through the physics and you go through the calculus and you're like, it can't get any worse than this. Oh, it gets worse. So I go into introduction to electrical circuits and I took my first exam and I got a 35. And my professor held up the exam and he said, "The wonderful student that got the 35 on this exam, you need to come to my office today." So, of course, I didn't think it was me. I was just like, "Oh, it wasn't me, so whatever." So I go up to get my paper and I'm like, so I lock eyes with him. He locks eyes with me and he's like, "I'll see you at my office." So I go into his office and he had these pigs flying around his ceiling. He literally paper clipped pigs and they were flying around the ceiling. And his concept was when pigs fly. So I walk into his office, I've been in there before, looking around, pigs are flying in the ceiling. I'm like, what is this? And he says to me, he's like, "So you're a female and you're a minority. Can you make it in engineering?" And I was like, "Wait, what? Did he just say that to me?" And he said it. And he rightfully so said it because it's your electrical circuits class, and you just got a 35 on your first test. So yes, ma'am, he did have the right to say that to you. And I was determined that I was going to make him eat those words. I was like, "You're going to eat those words." And he had the on his syllabus, if you could score, what he would do is he would drop your lowest test score and he would double it with your final exam score. So, I had a lot of work to do because I just got a 35 on my first exam. And I had 3 more exams and I had a final that I had to take because the final was optional for some, but it wasn't optional for me because I done messed up the first one. But lo and behold, I ended up getting an A in the class, and that same professor handed me my degree 5 years later. And I
Oh,
looked at him
Uh,
and I was like, I made it. And he was just like, uh, I don't know how, but she did. And I looked at it as, yes, I could have gotten so discouraged. And yes, it could have threw me. And I did. I got discouraged because I was like, oh man, like I thought I understood this. And clearly I didn't. And I was just like, man, what did I do? So it's like you can either stay in that cycle and stay in the pity party, or you can pull yourself out of that hole and be like, no, I'm better than this. I need to find out, okay, what did my other friends get? And they were sure they're like, oh, Ledlyne, you clearly got an A. I got an A. And I was like, no, girl, you need to help me. Please help a sister. Call on your friends. Call on your friends. Have them help you. And believe it or not, you will meet that circle of friends. They will be like, okay, yeah, we only had 5 homework problems, but clearly you need to do additional. We'll help you. And those are the friends you need to hold on to, because I had to do those additional problems, and I had to make a point that I need it. And then that comes in also with how we balance our social life as we're students, because your parents did not drop you off because they wanted you to be a part of a club. They dropped you off because they wanted you to graduate with some type of degree. So it's like you have to get those. And we love our clubs and we love our organizations, but they cannot be the main reason that we're in school. So we have to learn how to balance them. We can't overcommit. You can't overcommit in your social life, and then your school and your academic stuff starts really suffer. So it's like you get to a point where that light bulb goes off and be like, I'm on Bright Futures. I can't lose my scholarship. I need to get my grades right. I need to get it together. And then, whatever it was that helped you not to get that great grade, you start to reanalyze and you start to say, oh, I got to dig deep. I got to get right. And you find that way back. And you don't stay in the place of being discouraged. Just remember, everybody's on the same journey as you. Everybody's had a bad test score, but what are you going to do about it?
yeah, that's true. That happened to me too. When I think it was my first calc class, I wasn't doing that great, but I had two other friends with me. So we were just like, we have to pass this class. We have to study more. And yeah, you find the resources on how to make that possible.
Yep, take advantage of the math lab. I used to live in the math lab.
Yeah.
And then was it the ARC? No, the SARC. There was like
Yeah.
this
Stark, yep.
resource center. Yeah, and you go in there and it's like when you first get that schedule, try to find out where the tutors are for that subject on campus. When I was at UCF, the minority engineer department, they had a bunch of tutors that tutored in a lot of different things. Man, I would be the first one in there, like, I need help. No, 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 no. I got him today. He needs to help me study. And you're not trying to be selfish. And don't wait until the last minute.
Hmm.
Because last minute, man, your adrenaline's pumping, you scared, you're not going to retain anything. So you have to start early and try to gravitate through as far as learning the content, so you can really master the material and you can bring forth your best effort in passing these tests and exams. But that last minute stuff, it doesn't. I mean, for some it works, for me it doesn't.
Yeah. Well, you talked about a professor, but I want you to talk us about the other professor that helped you, or well, how did you get your first internship? Please tell us that story.
So this professor, his name is Dr. Stevenson, and he was a professor within the colleges. He was in psychology, so he was a psychology professor, and I was taking psychology with no, it was philosophy. I was taking philosophy with Dr. Stevenson. And of course, I go in the first day and I'm like, wait, what? He's like challenging my beliefs and everything. And I was like, oh, I need to go talk to this man. So I go to his office and we developed a relationship. So, and when I say we do like a good relationship, you have to say that these days. But we developed a really good professor-student relationship. I would I would go to his office and we would just talk about his version of philosophy, what I figured philosophy was, and we would have like these really, really in-depth conversations. So in having these in-depth conversations, he was just like, well, Ledlyne, what do you want to do? And mind you, I had done the engineering summer program at University of Wisconsin-Madison. Of all the companies we had visited that summer, I fell in love with Kimberly-Clark because I never knew how many engineers it took to make a baby diaper. I'm like, a baby diaper? Like, you don't, engineering, you're seeing circuits and you're seeing all this other stuff. The last thing that you think is that you're going to be able to use what you're learning in order to go work in a manufacturing company and make diapers. And I was just so intrigued that engineers were making diapers. My first meeting, I was like, y'all make toilet paper? No, it's called bathroom tissue. So I thought that was funny. It was like, okay, we make bathroom tissue. But it was just like, wow. So in talking to Dr. Stevenson, he was like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to work for Kimberly-Clark. And he was like, why? It was a whole discussion. Like, I'm sitting in Span's office and I'm talking about how, yeah, when we toured Kimberly-Clark, I never knew how many engineers. I didn't even know engineers. I didn't even know who Kimberly-Clark was. That, to me, that sounds like a girl in one of my classes, Kimberly-Clark. Never knew that was a company, nothing. And Dr. Stevenson told me, he said, for your final exam, because you don't have to take the final exam if you don't want to. So I was like, score. He goes, but what you will do in place of your final, you'll write a 500-word essay on why you want to work for Kimberly-Clark. So I was like, okay, no brainer. Went home and I had to turn it in by the final exam date. So I went home or went to my student apartment, whatever, wrote my little exam, my little essay on why I want to work for Kimberly-Clark. He took the essay. He had a friend that worked for Kimberly-Clark in Wisconsin. He mailed it to them. And when he mailed them the essay, I don't know how long it took. I ended up getting a whole phone call. I did not get an interview. I got an offer. So I got an offer to come work for Kimberly-Clark, and I worked for Kimberly-Clark my sophomore, junior, and my first senior year summer. So I did 3 internship terms with them, and it was awesome. So with Kimberly-Clark, my first year, I worked within Huggies, where I worked on linear actuators to help position the baby diaper tabs. So making sure they were aligned and they fit the right spots on the side of the diapers. The following summer, I worked so that was in Neenah, Wisconsin. My second summer, I worked at the Beach Island, South Carolina plant, where I was working on cottonelle bathroom tissue. And for there, I worked on the log saws, and they use a saw to make sure that all of the bathroom tissue were the same size. But I was helping to convert the technology, because before they had an operator that would go in and that would press certain buttons. But then we were switching into the phase of PLCs. So now you have an engineer that's actually, you need to program the touch screens so that you can do this. So then I got to do that, and that was cool. And then my third summer, I interned with Kimberly-Clark. Here you go. So Glass Daddy, turn it on. So then my third summer, I interned with Kimberly-Clark. And when I interned with Kimberly-Clark, I did Huggies wet wipes. So with the Huggies wet wipes, we had a lot of different containers. So now what you're doing is you're looking at the different containers, the recycling of them, the materials they're made of, how to make them better safe for the environment. And then we were looking at the common ingredients amongst all the different wet wipes and just how to, so yes, all of that because a professor and I just started to talk. So I say that to say it's so important to just go get to know your professors. They're not just these people that just run lectures, but he pretty much helped to change my life. And then it was sad because I want to say in 2008, I was looking up Dr. Stevenson because I wanted to come out UCF and say, hey, how you doing? I would reach out to him through the years. And then in 2008, Dr. Stevenson passed away with cancer. So I never got to, and then I ended up finding out because I was trying to go look for him at UCF. I didn't find him in the directory. And then when I did an online search, I found that he had passed away. And I was just like, oh man. So had I even known, I probably would have went to his service or something. But I just say that to say, spend time with your professors. They know people, they know things that we don't know. If there's a goal and a dream, I didn't even realize that was a goal and a dream, but he actually helped me to fulfill that dream and to accomplish that goal. So it's like teachers can really be angels in disguise.
Oh, that is so sweet.
Mhm.
Aw.
Yes, ma'am.
Um, so you talked about how you went like out of state for your internships and um, and like balancing your social life with clubs and working on school and everything. I know I know I've been having a hard time like adjusting to being like where my internship is because I've never lived outside of Florida before and I'm in Pittsburgh right now. And so how did you like balance your social, your work and your school life and like how were you able to make friends at your internship like that like yeah.
So for balancing school, when I was at UCF, I was an RA.
Oh,
So I
okay.
was an RA, yeah, my juniors and both my senior years, I was an RA, and that was different. But being an RA, you're there. That's your job to take care
Mhm.
of your dorm students. But you would be surprised. I've been invited to do my dorm students. I've been invited to weddings. I've been invited to babies being born. I walked into a meeting and one of my RA students was in a meeting with me, and I'm looking like, "What are you doing here?" And he's like, "I work with you now." He's like, "Stop it, Brad." So how do you balance it? I had another spending time with a professor. So in the minority engineering office, like I said, after I got that 35 on that exam, I was like, oh, this is not gonna work. I went to the minority engineering office, and at the time, the director, she had a really good relationship with the students in there. She helped me put together a time schedule. And she was just like, okay, you have bad time management skills. And I was like, well, I don't have time for that. And she was like, okay, we need to schedule your time. So she printed out one of these Excel sheets. You know how they have those Excel sheets with the time on one side, the days of the week. And she was just like, okay, we need to just start scheduling your time. So you do need to have free time. So you need to have the social time, but you have to balance it. You know, you need to study 3, 4 hours a week or a day for certain subjects. We just started added that in, and I started following that, and it helped. But when I moved for my internships, believe I met some of my best of friends. So one young lady that I met while interning at Kimberly Clark in Wisconsin, she was in my wedding. I was in her wedding. You
Oh,
meet your lifelong friends in like some of the craziest places and some of the so many different environments. Um, as an intern, like get plugged in. So hang out, do those internship activities. If all the interns are going to the beach or they're going to the mall, they're somewhere new as well. Put yourself in their shoes. They're somewhere new. They're trying to meet new people as well. They're away from family. They're trying to figure it out. We were all trying to figure it out. So we all hung out trying to figure it out together. And then we learned that even though we all didn't have the same internship assignment, they all went sort of kind of hand in hand. So we could learn from each other about our different internship assignments so that we could do our internship assignments. So we did that a lot. We collaborated, we learned from each other, and then through the school years, we kept in contact because statics is statics. It's not statics at UCF and different at other schools. It's the same. So we shared notes on, oh yeah, I took that last semester. This is what I did. In order to get a friend, you have to show yourself friendly, and you have to be a friend. So just be willing to be a friend to others and just reach out like, hey, how you doing? I'm so and so. I'm from here, and they'll do the same and just make time to hang out with them. And then like your mentors and everybody else, they encourage that. So find you a good mentor. So you have the employee resource groups at your different companies, find a good mentor, and then the different mentors have different interns, but just reach out to the interns, talk to the other interns and figure out how you guys can collaborate. What do y'all have in common? You'd be surprised how much you have in common with people. What all you have in common and just start the conversations.
Great, that's good advice. Thank you.
Yes. Also, you talked about all your summer internships with Kimberly Clark. Did you ever like see yourself working for the NASA?
I never saw myself working for NASA. I never saw myself working for Kimberly Clark either. And even my NASA journey has been like, wait, what? So the Minority Engineering Office at UCF, they used to have a group called MEPIAC, and it was the Minority Industry Advisory Council. And what they used to do was like every 6 months, the minority advisors for UCF Engineering used to come out and do some type of event on campus. And they used to do like, they would talk to us about interviewing, you name it. They would just put on an event at the student union. Whoever wanted to show up would show up, one of those things. And they were having like a spring job fair. And mind you, I didn't even want to go. I was like, man. So my senior year at UCF, Kimberly Clark had, they had, I want to say it was about 100 of us, about 100 interns, but they only had 17 positions to give. So since they only had 17 positions to give, I can't say it was cutthroat, but it was because everybody was trying to work hard to make sure that they got that best intern assignment so they can bubble up to the top. I don't know where I fell, but I know I didn't get an offer. So I had gotten it. So I had interned with Kimberly Clark for 3 years. My heart was set. I was going to work for Kimberly Clark. And bam, I get a letter. You're not, like you're not moving. And I was like, wait, what? And I was like, oh, but I couldn't be bummed. And I went to the Minority Engineering Department's job fair. And while I was at a job fair, I met a man, Mr. R. Edwards, and he came over, young lady, tell me a little bit about yourself. And I'm like, okay, I'm an engineering student. I'm getting ready to graduate. He's like, you have any job prospects? And I'm like, mm-mm. And he wrote his name. He took my resume and he said, reach out to me. Let's talk about you coming out to the Kennedy Space Center. So I was just like, doing what? He was like working on a space shuttle. And I was like, the space shuttle? And he was like, yeah. And mind you, this is in 2003. So in 2003, the space shuttle, the Kennedy Space Center lost Space Shuttle Columbia. So it's like, are y'all even still relevant? Y'all just lost, and the whole crew passed away. So it was like, y'all just lost the whole space shuttle and the crew. Like, are y'all still relevant? And he was like, young lady, we're very much relevant. And I was like, okay. So he took my resume, but he wrote his name and his phone number or his office number on a subway napkin. He gave me the napkin and he said, if you are serious and you're interested in a position at the Space Center, give me a call. So I was like, all right, yeah, cool. And then they started doing door prizes. I didn't win any door prizes, but guess which door prize I won? I won a light up, it was a space shuttle pin that lights up from the United Space Alliance. And I was like, really? Like, really? I went there. I was like, really? So I go up and I get my little gift, and I was just like, thank you. And he was like, you need to give me a call. And I was like, yes, sir. And I went home and I put the napkin on my table. And guess what I didn't do? I didn't call him. And then 2 weeks down the road, I started thinking to myself, I'm like, you're getting ready to graduate. You don't even have a job. Like, girl, what are you doing? So I was like, where's that subway napkin? Where's that subway napkin? So I give him a call. And when I give him a call, he's like, hey, it's funny you would call me today because I'm getting ready to go on vacation. And I was just like, all right, cool. So he's like, so he's going through some questions, and I tell him that I'm an engineering student, I'm electrical, and I'm interested in, and I've interned here, and yada yada, right? So he goes through, and then he's like, okay, we'll be in touch. And I'm like, all right, thank you. Sure enough, I get a phone call, and I'm invited to interview at the Kennedy Space Center with United Space Alliance. So you guys have it made because y'all have GPS systems on your phone. In those days, not only did I have a flip phone as a cell phone, we did not have we didn't have GPS systems on them. So, and then I don't think I had a GPS box, so I had to print my directions off on MapQuest. So yeah, so I printed my directions on MapQuest. Needless to say, I didn't realize that. So I printed out my directions going to Kennedy Space Center, not realizing that United Space Alliance, their HR department was actually on Astronaut Road in Cape Canaveral. So I drive to the Kennedy Space Center, y'all, and I'm so excited. And when I get to the badging gate, they're looking at me like, you're at the wrong location. The location you need to go to is an hour away. And I'm like, my interview. I'm gonna be late for my interview. So I said a prayer in the car. I was just like, Lord, if it is your will for me to work for the Kennedy Space Center, it will be fine that I'm like 2 hours late for an interview. It's like, that's a long stretch. Like that's way out there. Like really way out there. But Lord, if it's not your will, it is what it is. So, they write down the directions for me. You got to go on US 1. You got to get back on 528. It's going to turn into US 1. You're going to stay there. Then you're going to eventually make a left. You'll see the building, yada, yada. So now I'm driving in panic mode. And I'm like, oh, wow. I get to the building and now I'm like all sweating. I'm like, now I'm off my game because now I'm just like in panic. Like, what did I do? And then Christina Reeves, yeah, she's still at the Space Center. She may not remember this story, but she's still at the Space Center. She walks up to me in the lobby and she's like, are you Ledlyne Huresca? And I said, yes, ma'am. She goes, did you get my voicemail? And I'm like, did you call my dorm room? And she's like, yeah, I called whatever. I was like, oh, you called my dorm room. She's like, we're running about 3 hours behind on interviews. So it'll be about another 45 minutes. I was like a deer in headlights, like, wait, what? And I was like, oh. And now I'm like panicking, I'm sweating. You know how it is. So I'm like, oh man. So now I have like 45 minutes to gain my composure and to just be like, this is crazy. Like, this is legitimately crazy. So, sure enough, I go in and they had it set up where they had a lot of different engineering groups. So, there were like 8 engineering groups in this room and they were all interviewing people, right? So, I walk in and it was like a speed dating thing where they or speed networking. So then like after 10 minutes, switch, and then you go to the next station, switch, and then you just going around until you interviewed all the people, right? So I did this and now I'm leaving and I'm like, yeah. And I'm, like after you interview, you're thinking to yourself, okay, I could have did better over there. I could have did better over there. And then you're trying to, but it's like you were switching so quickly that it's like you didn't really have the time to change your game. So I was like, all right, cool. So I went through it. I get in the car and I'm like, I'm still in awe that I showed up and I was actually late but on time. So I was like, wow. And I get back and I'm just like, that was like, wow. So get back to UCF and I want to say 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from a couple of managers. Hey, thank you for interviewing, but we chose somebody else. So I'm like, okay. Then I get a couple of letters in the mail and I'm like, okay. Then I get a phone call from a man named Jeffrey Noble. And he's like, hey, Ledlyne, I don't know if you remember me, but you interviewed with me and I'd like to offer you a job. And let me tell you, Hood Ledlyne came out. I go, no, you are wasting my time because you sent me a letter. Y'all have called me. You don't want me. And he's like, no, wait. He's like, young lady, you interviewed with like 8 teams that day. And I'm like, huh? He's like, remember? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, those were the other managers. No, I want you to come work for me. And I go, for real? Like, you really want me? He's like, yeah. And I was like, are you sure? Because the other one said that they didn't want me to work for them. And that sort of kind of hurt my feelings. And he was like, no, we want you to come work for us. And yeah, so then I started working for Jeffrey Noble. So I was doing maintenance and flight support. I got hired into a mechanical group. So that's another thing. When you interview, even though I was electrical, don't pay attention that you're interviewing to it according to another discipline. They may have a need for your discipline within their department. So don't even discount it. So, and that's why I was like so thrown off. Like, why is a mechanical manager calling me? He's mechanical, I'm electrical, but he needed an electrical person within his department. And that's why he interviewed me. And I ended up getting the job with him. So I worked for United Space Alliance for 4 years. And our main contract was with NASA. So I was at the Kennedy Space Center. And then in 2008, so I hired in at the Space Center in 2004, working for United Space Alliance in 2008. In 2006, all right, so 2004, I'm working for United Space Alliance, maintenance flight support. In 2005, I was offered an opportunity to cross train. So when you cross train, that pretty much means you're working in your current department, but you're also learning skills within another department. So I started cross training in an electrical department, loved it. And once I started cross training that department, that team had NASA counterparts that I had to report to. And in 2008, I interviewed and received a position with NASA. So I've been working for NASA since 2008. My journey has been like, wow. So go downstairs and go to daddy, okay? I'm coming. I got kids at home, y'all. I got kids. So when I started in 2008, my journey has been non-traditional. So I graduated from University of Miami in 2009 with a degree in industrial engineering. And I fell in love with the concepts of systems engineering. So that's why I think it's also so important. I think it's important to go to grad school because yes, you've learned the basics and yes, you've learned your discipline, but then I would recommend jump into another discipline to learn some concepts from them to see how does it marry with your current discipline, see how y'all work together. So I ended up doing industrial engineering, loved it, and fell in love with systems engineering. I never knew I'd be that person that loves requirements. Requirements? What do you love about requirements? Writing them, showing people how to solve them, how to close them, how to satisfy them, how to verify them. I like it. I'm like, weirdest thing, but I fell in love with requirements. And once the space shuttles retired, I had to find a new route with working at the Space Center. And they gave me the opportunity to start doing requirements management or systems engineering work for some small research programs. And in doing that for small research projects, then I got picked up and I started doing it for larger systems. Then I got picked up, and with Artemis, I got to work as the lead systems engineer for ground special power. And then after doing that, then I got to work KGCS, and it was like, wait, what? Then I got to work a satellite project that was going to fly into space, and that was like, what? And then out of nowhere, when I tell you out of nowhere, I got offered a program manager job, and it was like, program manager? Like what? What do they do? They manage budgets and schedule and manage people. And it's been an awesome experience. So you never know. So it's important that even when you're meeting in your teams, even when you become an engineer, not just even as an engineer, but even as a student, your reputation, how you carry yourself, how you conduct yourself in organizations, in the classroom, it's just so important. You never know who is looking at you, and you never know who has that next opportunity that you know nothing about, but you may love it. So I always just say that just be mindful of how you carry yourself in public, how you talk to people, and just the things that we do, because it really does have an impact.
Wow. Yeah. So you're a program manager now. So what kind of programs do you manage?
So I manage research projects.
Mhm.
So we have research teams, we have research collaborations with UCF, all these different universities, and then our researchers are actually in the lab. They're doing the research, but then so you have the NASA headquarters. NASA headquarters comes up with all the rules, requirements on what the projects they hey we need a certain research projects that can do X, Y, and Z, and you pretty much are helping to bring that back to your center. This is what headquarters is looking for, X, Y, and Z. And then we ensure that we have the researchers that are doing X, Y, and Z. And the missions help from everything moon to Mars, helping us get to the moon, helping us to get to the moon, helping us to get to Mars, and everything in between. The things that you haven't, me and you may have never even thought of. How do you sustain life on the moon? How do you sustain life in Mars? What are the astronauts going to eat as they travel through these different locations? How are they going to breathe? How is the soil? How is the regolith? How is that going to affect them? You have researchers that are looking into all of this, and they're in the labs, they're working hard, they're collaborating with universities, and they're collaborating with research companies, and they're just bringing it all to life.
Wow. That's so cool.
That's great. Very interesting.
Yeah.
And you get to work with people. You get to work with people, find out from people what do you enjoy doing, and you're helping to groom them, and they're helping to groom you. So it's like everybody's working together, you know? So,
That's great. It sounds like a great working environment.
it
Yeah.
really is, yes. And your working environment is so important because your work team really does become family. You're spending 40 hours a week with them. And you don't spend 40 hours a week with your family. I mean, you want to, but like with the kids going to school and stuff, I end up seeing my coworkers or spending time with them on the flat screen a lot. But it's like you want to make sure that you're having good relationships with your teams. You want to make sure that you're communicating. All that is important. So even as you're working in your teams at UCF on different projects and senior design or even classwork stuff, like that's those skills that you're learning, how to communicate, how to play fair in the playground. All of that comes to play even when you become an engineer in corporate America. You have to know how to play fair with everybody in the playground, how to be accepting of cultures, different backgrounds, just different people, and just how to just come in and play fair with everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Also, yeah, that happens to me also, like as an international student. Sometimes I believe that's like help us be more tolerant among others because
Mm-hmm.
everyone like has different things, different backgrounds, cultures. So yeah, it's very interesting to get to hear from every person in a group, or yeah, that's very
Mm-hmm.
cool. So, well, as a successful woman in STEM, what advice will you give to every woman in STEM?
Don't let the boys keep you silent. Speak up. Speak up. Sit at the table. Be willing to have a conversation. Don't be scared. Because sometimes you walk into the room and we're outnumbered. So it's like you're like, oh. And then it's like you don't want to sit at the table or you don't want to say certain things. You're like, we're always in our well, I can't say for all of us, but I'm always in my head. Is that relevant? Should I say that? Are they going to see where I'm coming from? And then you eventually get to the point where you're just like, yeah, I need to say that. You say it. So we have to learn how to be confident. We have to learn how to be confident. Like we have proven that we can take the classes with the guys and with the others. We can take the classes and we have proven that we can pass the tests. So the company would not hire you if they didn't think you had a voice that was relevant. They
Yeah.
would. So it's like we have to get out of our head, and it's just that thing. I don't know. It's like I can't say it for everybody else, but there's a book called Lean In, and it just goes through these concepts on how women think. And she's just providing so many, I don't want to misquote the author name, but she works for Facebook. And the book is called, hold on, let me get it for you. It's called Lean In. And she goes into, and different resource groups and different women's group, they were holding workshops on this book because it's just, all right, so the book is called Lean In, and she also has a TED Talks, and it is written by Sheryl Sandberg. And she's talking about women, work, and the will to lead. And then she talks about her experiences. I think she used to work for Google before she went to Facebook. And she just talks about the concepts in the books are like, wait, what? But she talks about little things that we don't think about, how we don't want to sit at the table. And I'm like, and when I read the book, I was laughing because I wouldn't sit at the table. I would walk in the room, all the guys would go sit at the table, whether or not they had something to say or to bring to the meeting, they sat at the table. But it's like, I wouldn't go sit at the table. And then I may have 15, 20 comments during the meeting. I have to get up, go stand over by the table, talk loud so everybody can hear me. And it's like, Ledlyne, why aren't you just sitting at the table? And it's like, I wasn't confident enough to feel like I belonged at the table. So I was avoiding the table. So it's like, why do we do that? And then I didn't realize that women do that until I started reading this book, and I was like, wait, what? I was like, wow. So she's like, take your seat at the table. Another thing she talks about is a male will see a job, he'll read a job online, and the minute he reads the job, he's going to apply for it because he's going to be like, he may be only able to do 20 or 30% of the job description, but he's going to be like, I think I can do that. Women, unless we feel that we're 70, 80% qualified, we won't even apply. Mm-hmm. So it's like, what? And then how many times, and then when I think about it, even at the Space Center, how many times have I seen a job and I'll say to a fellow female colleague, I'll be like, did you see that job? And they'll be like, yeah, I saw it. I'll be like, are you gonna apply? Be like, oh no, I couldn't do that. They'll be like, why you don't think you could do that? I think you would be great. Oh no, like she has to do, like he has to do this and this and this. So that's not for me. And it's like we are so, like we have a high bar on how we judge ourselves. And the males don't judge themselves like like we do. They do not. So it's like we have to get, my advice to women is get out of your head, go for those opportunities, sit at the table, be confident. Don't be afraid to voice your concerns, voice your opinion. Don't be afraid to speak up. Like your validation came the day that they interviewed you and they hired you. So just be confident enough to know that if they hired you, they know you have what it takes to do the job and to do it well. So stop discounting yourself and stop thinking that you can't do it. You can do it.
That is really good advice.
Yeah.
And even as you go through your classes, remember you can do it. You're in the class. You pass the prerequisites. They let you in that class. UCF Financial Department took your money for that class. You are there. You are there. Even if you fail that first exam, regroup. Just regroup. Think about it. Okay, what did I mess up on and why was this such a disaster? And just figure it out. Pull on your resources. Find those different resource groups on campus that tutor in that topic. Where are your friends? Find your girlfriends, your friends. Start, hey, how did you do? Be vulnerable. A lot of times we're not willing to be vulnerable to actually really tell people where we are and what we're going through. Be vulnerable. Hey, girl, I screwed up on that test. What do you mean you screwed up? Girl, I got a 35. What? A 35? And then they'll be like, oh, clearly, girl, we need to meet. And be consistent. Stay on your game. So it's like now that you've been vulnerable and you've told people what your problem is, they're going to be like, oh, we need to start studying together. Follow them up. Because when you meet people that are willing to study, hang out with them people. Like, well, what time are you going to be in the library? Oh, I'm going to be in the library from 12 to 1. Oh, that's when I have my social group meeting. I don't want to be in the library. So, but which one? Your mom and dad did not drop you off to school for social club. They drop you off for that degree. So then you make those decisions like, hey, social club, I may not can come to the meeting every week. I can probably come every other week. I have to study for this test. I have to start preparing. Well, the test isn't for 4 weeks. Yeah, but I messed up real bad on the first one. So I need to rearrange my life and I need to focus and and you have to do that. We have to be willing to prioritize. We have to be willing to prioritize. What helps Antonia, what helps Julia be the best version of themselves? What is the most thing, what's most important to you? And when you figure out what's most important to you, when you realize those relationships that you have to work on, you prioritize. You're like, okay, like today, this is ABC. I got to focus on this stuff. Like this other stuff is wonderful. I would love to get to it, but I'm going to have to get to it on a day that I have just a little more time. But today I have to focus on this because this is the stuff that's ultimately going to get me to where I'm trying to go. Because in 5 years, you can either still be a UCF student or you can finish. You can have a degree. So it's like the choices that we make. At my at my last NESB conference, there was a lady that was selling these little hanger things. I would go show it to you, but it would pull me from the screen. And there's this little hanger that I bought, and it says, "Our choices, our choices determine our choices." Oh, let me look it up. It's something that it says about choices. Choices, not circumstances. Our choices, not circumstances, determine our outcome. And it's true. It's our choices. So it's like you have to make the choices. Yeah, choices, not circumstances, determine your success. So it's like it's your choice. So you're gonna wake up, you can eat the donut, or you can go to the gym. It's your choice. You can go study for the electronics class, or you can just continue on and just say, hey, my sorority stuff is more important this week. It's all up to you. But we really, you have the roadmap, so you just have to make the right choices.
That is really, really good advice. Being confident and like making the right choices and prioritizing your education is all super important, because I know that like sometimes I've messed up and I've like chosen a social group over studying, and then I didn't do well in the exam, or I didn't feel confident enough to ask a question and then I got that question wrong. So that kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So I think it's really important to know those things and to kind of
Mm-hmm.
put them into your life.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay.
Have what it takes.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So, um, you got your bachelor's in electrical engineering and then master's and now PhD in industrial engineering. Why why did you pick industrial, and like how do they go together in a way that is good, like a good combination?
So, I didn't know how they went together. I didn't know how they went together. And so the cool thing is that depending on once you finish your undergrad and you hire into a company, most companies have some type of training and development company or training and development department, right? So training and development is going to have all these different series, project management series, systems engineering series. They have all these different series, but then they also may have a list of schools that come to the company to do classes. So luckily for me, University of Miami they came to the Kennedy Space Center to teach classes. So they had a track, and one track was the engineering management track, or the second track was the industrial engineering track. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I looked at if you look at the curriculum for both of the different tracks, I was like, oh, I don't know much about this, but I think I want to learn a little bit about that. And then it's like, explore. So it's like we have to each explore, figure out, what do I want to do? Is this going to be cool for me? I was interested in productivity. So the industrial engineering track had a class on productivity, and I really want to take that class. So it's like that was like my determining factor. I want to take that class. I want to take this. I want to take this class. And I want to take this class, and that's how. So I can't say that I had a clear roadmap on what I wanted to do with industrial engineering. I didn't know. I never really, like, I spoke to industrial engineers when I was at UCF, but I never went into like the nitty gritty to really understand what their courses were like, what they were learning. I didn't know. But once I got a taste of it, I was like, I like it. I like it. Because I knew for me, I didn't want a master's in electrical. I loved electrical for undergrad. I loved learning electrical, but I was like, nah, I want to try something else. And it just so happened that was teaching at job, and while they were teaching at work, they let me see the curriculum, and I just wanted to try. So don't be afraid to explore. Like, just because you get whatever your discipline degree is, you may be able to marry it with something else. There are engineers that get MBAs. You can go the MBA route. I mean, it's pretty much up to you. You can just figure out what you want to do, what excites you, and what direction do you see yourself going in. But with systems engineering, I love the technical processes that go along with it. I just love the learning that comes with it. To me, it's endless. So find something that makes you happy. And then that's the thing, when you get your undergrad degree, like, you knew you had to get an undergrad degree. The master's degree, the PhD, that's a whole nother, like, the will and the commitment and the desire to actually complete that degree. That comes from another place, because you have a job. I don't need to finish this. But it's like, if it's really interesting and something that you're truly interested in, you're gonna stick it out, you're gonna complete it.
Yeah, I think that's very important because sometimes, well, I don't know if that happens to you too, Julia, but at least for me, I was I always thought like if I go through electrical engineering or computer engineering, I'll have to end like my degree and then do a master's on the same thing. But yeah, it's really good to know that things because yeah, maybe once you finish your undergrad, you're just like, oh, I really want to explore something else. And then yeah, I think industrial engineering is also really important and really cool. I really like that field also.
Yeah, me too.
Mhm. Yeah, and go talk to the different graduate people in those departments and find out, oh, hey, does electrical go with this? And I'd be like, oh, yeah, well, how? Because we don't all have the answers, right? So it's like, there's some people out there that do. There's somebody that does this job that teaches people how does the electrical go with the industrial. Just look for those people and ask the questions, and you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so much for this interview. Like, you are so insightful and so well spoken, and
Aw, thank you.
it was amazing, and all the advice that you gave us and all your stories, it was great.
Well, I really do appreciate the opportunity. So thank you, Antonia, and thank you, Julia, for inviting me out and for giving me the opportunity to speak. And at the end of the day, I promise you, like, I love working with women. I'm a female, right? But I have boys. So I have two boys. So I'm like, I have to find other ways to encourage women. And this is my way to encourage women. Yeah, because just like you guys, I had questions I didn't know, but there were other women that were willing to be those resources and to be those mentors to help guide me along the way. And it's all about strengthening the pipeline. So y'all strengthen the pipeline as well. So as we're helping y'all up, y'all make sure that y'all reach back out and that you help the next generation of engineers that are coming up so that we can have a pipeline that's strong with Antonia's and with Julia's that want to press forward, because we have to keep that pipeline strong. for the future.
Yeah, thank you, Ledlyne. Thank you so much for your time, and your advice is always so wise that thank you so much. Yeah. We're very happy to have you here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. And reach out anytime. Don't be a stranger, okay?
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. All right. Y'all have a great rest of your day. Be great on your internships. Continue to do great things. And we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless you.